Remember Everquest? It was a super old MMORPG, even older than World of Warcraft, and one of the first to employ a proper 3D game engine, very high fantasy and incredibly successful. But why am I saying all this? Well, it's because today we'll be playing Champions of Norrath, a PlayStation 2 action RPG set in the Everquest universe, released all the way back in 2004. And when I say action RPG, I mean of course a classic Diablo clone through and through, in the style of a Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance series. After all, this was developed by Snowblind Studios, the masterminds that made the engine that powered almost all the PS2 ARPGs we know and love. Yes, even that one, but that's a whole different can of worms I won't get into right now. Instead, let's delve deep into the fascinating world of Champions of Norrath and see what makes it so special.
Your heart rate is quickening.
Diablo clones are famous for their very intricate storylines, and Champions of Norrath is no different. I bet you're just dying to learn what this game's plot is all about, aren't you? Well, here it goes. The elf world of Kelefin is under attack by the combined forces of orcs and goblins, an alliance never before seen, with their leader having a dark ulterior motive. Since everyone is pretty much useless, it falls to us to drive the enemy forces back, save the ungrateful elves from destruction, and uncover the sinister plot endangering all of Norrath. The story is split into 5 acts, with each having its self-contained plot contributing to the general storyline. In the first act, we assist with a war effort and chase down the mysterious orc leader named Pelis into the underworld. In Act 2, we deal with a giant ant infestation while also killing Dracula and taking a boat to Pelis' next destination. Unfortunately, in Act 3, we crash into the Pit of Ill Omen, having to rescue a whole bunch of people and retrieve the weird horn thingy to prevent an evil god named Inoruk from rising again, along with his terrible army. Unfortunately, Pelis bamboozles us as he turns into a dark elf and uses the horn to resurrect Inoruk and fuck things up for every living soul in Norrath. Everything seems lost, but we don't lose hope. In Act 4, we collect a bunch of random shit for the Resident Evil 4 merchant and kill a whole army of dark elves to gain access to the planes of hate and air, so we can enter Inoruk's lair. In the final act, with Inoruk's army assembled and aiming to conquer all of Norrath, we drive a desperate charge into the big bad stronghold to finish things once and for all. Pelis dies because evil bosses always kill their subordinates, and after getting our asses kicked a few times, we finally destroy Inoruk and save the world, as well as Fiona V. If you're an Everquest nerd, that probably means something to you. But yeah, that's the plot of the game in a nutshell. I glossed over a lot of things to keep it as concise as possible, but do you even care? This is an ARPG, no one cares about the story, we just wanna slash things and level up to keep that dopamine up, so we can keep the horrors of life hidden from our subconscious. There's really nothing else to say. The story is as stereotypical as it gets, the characters are basically exposition machines, and the only major twist is Pelis' epic prank in Act 3. But, as I said, it's not that important. The plot does a great job of introducing us to the world of Norrath and its hack and slashing action. For me, that's all that matters. Usually, hack and slash action RPGs are not known for their graphical fidelity, since everything is so far away from the top-down camera and the screen is always full of effects and characters. But Champions of Norrath is the exception to the rule, with beautiful graphics and tremendous music to boot. I know nowadays they don't look that special, everything looks kinda flat and the texture repetition is a bit jarring, but back then it was a great looking game, with beautiful areas, impressive lighting and fantastic water physics, among others aimed at a very specific audience. Anyway, there are many different environments to explore, such as dark caves, lush forests, and foreboding castles, and they all look very atmospheric and unique. You even get to visit fiery volcanic dungeons at the bottom of the ocean itself, so you'll always have a new and exciting level waiting for you. As for the models, they are as high fantasy as it gets. All the classic monsters are here: orcs, goblins, spiders, ogres, elementals, and even fire-spitting bugs will jump at the opportunity to shred you to pieces. They all look exactly as you'd expect, no surprises there. Not that there is anything wrong with that, all the characters look very polished and detailed, just nothing special. Every once in a while though, you'll encounter some unholy abomination straight out of Bloodborne, but will mix things up and give you a heart attack. The only thing that disappointed me regarding the presentation was the cutscenes. They are very basic and every character feels very stiff, even though the animations in-game are silky smooth. But that's enough about the graphics. What about the music? Well, it was composed by Einon Zur, so you already know it's gonna be spectacular. If you don't know who Einon Zur is, he's a big-time composer who has a massive catalog of film, TV, and video game soundtracks, with one of his latest works being everyone's beloved Bethesda game Starfield. But we're talking about Champions of Norrath here, and thankfully Einon absolutely killed it, nailing the game's high fantasy atmosphere with grandiose tracks accompanying you while you're cutting down hordes of monsters, and menacing compositions enhancing the dark vibes emanating from the more sinister areas you'll be visiting. Einon's music style is a perfect fit for such a game, and it really makes you feel like you're a part of a grand adventure. My only complaint? Sometimes the music is mixed too low compared to the rest of the soundscape. Not that I mind the sound effects or the voice acting, everything is perfectly serviceable, and I enjoyed my character's little quips. It's just that I wanted the music to be louder, that's all. Overall, Champions of Norrath looks great, sounds great, hell, it even plays great. By today's standards it may look like generic fantasy slop, but it's still executed rather well, especially for its time. If you're a fan of old school Dungeons and Dragons and Everquest themed adventures, this game's art style is perfect for you. When it comes to the gameplay, if you've ever played Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance, you'll feel right at home, because Champions of Norrath is pretty much the same deal. You pick a class, slay hundreds of enemies, and grab their stuff, leveling up your stats and abilities to become a godlike killing machine. But let's dive deeper into it, starting with the classes. We have 5 to choose from, each with its strong points and weaknesses, fulfilling the classic RPG stereotypes. The Barbarian Warrior is a powerful and tanky melee fighter with limited magic abilities. The Good Elf Ranger is a master archer, skilled with a bow but weak in close combat. The High Elf Cleric is everyone's favorite paladin, strong with a mace and able to heal and protect others while banishing the undead at the same time. The Erudite Wizard is a scrawny little guy that sucks at proper combat but can cause chaos with a vast arsenal of spells. And finally we have the Dark Elf Shadow Knight, the edgy, mysterious warrior who is a jack of all trades. Plus, they can summon a skeleton body by tapping into the Bone Zone. After choosing our class and gender and making some very basic character changes, we are ready to enter the world of Norrath. Right off the bat, we can see that the game takes a different approach to the classic Diablo-styled formula, focusing more on the action, with our character being able to do combo attacks and block incoming hits. Even though we'll be fighting fewer enemies than the typical ARPG, the action remains just as tense and frenetic, since every enemy is pretty strong and can kill us in a few hits. Plus, it's incredibly easy to get surrounded and overwhelmed. The enemy AI is not very impressive though. We have melee fighters that hunt and circle us like oversized mosquitoes, archers who shoot us from a distance, and worst of all, mages who bombard us with spells and resurrect fallen foes. Their sheer strength and numbers though guarantee that our adventure will be an interesting challenge, having to move and block strategically while using our best spells to stay alive. Health regeneration isn't instant either, so chugging potions like an addict won't help if we can't evade attacks properly. I really love the combat of all of Snowblind's ARPGs. It's fast, fluid, and always keeps you engaged. My only complaints are about the spells. Since the game is focused primarily on weapon combat, the spells are mostly complementary, and from my experience, a full-on mage build would be quite hard to pull off. Not to mention it's annoyingly hard to aim missile spells, and sometimes they flat out miss for no reason. But combat is only one part of the experience. There is also the character progression system. Fallen enemies will drop loot of various rarities that we can use to enhance our fighting abilities. Unfortunately, throughout the adventure, our equipment will simply have bigger numbers, and maybe a few stat increases. Nothing imaginative like in Diablo for instance. We can enchant our weapons and armor with various gems we'll find for additional stat increases, but this system is much simpler than in Dark Alliance 2, as we can't buy any gems or customize our equipment in any way. If you're a hoarder, you're gonna hate this game, because your hero has a significantly small carrying capacity and most enemies are basically loot piñatas. So yeah, have those portal scrolls at the ready, I guess. Anyway, when it comes to our character's abilities, things are even simpler. There are 4 stats we can increase on each level up: strength, intelligence, dexterity, and stamina, which are all pretty self-explanatory. Instead of Dark Alliance's point system, we have rigid skill trees to increase our stats or acquire new spells. Nothing too complex like spell synergies or anything similar, so you can mix and match as you prefer, while always keeping an eye on your stat increases. And that's all there is to it. The level design is much more linear and basic since we can no longer jump, and there are no side quests at all. That doesn't mean though that there isn't any variety, as we'll complete many different tasks, like destroying catapults, escorting people, and rescuing kittens. Yep, what a perfect mission for a hardened warrior, right?
I suppose I should thank you, even though I know my dad is paying you to do this. But you did find all my precious little kitties, so I'll go back. But only because Chloe needs her paw looked at, not because my dad told you to get me.
Shut up, you little brat. You're lucky my axe passes right through you. Overall, Champions of Norrath's gameplay is simple but effective. The role-playing elements are more stripped down compared to the Dark Alliance series, but the combat remains just as interesting, with enough variety and action to keep things from becoming stale. A perfectly serviceable Diablo clone with great combat and an awesome atmosphere. I'm not gonna mince words here, I love the fuck out of this game. Didn't expect that, did you? Yeah, although Champions of Norrath is a much simpler version of the Dark Alliance games, its beautiful atmosphere, spectacular soundtrack and top-notch action make it a must-play, at least for me. If you love Diablo-styled ARPGs like me and want a huge hit of PlayStation 2 nostalgia, you should definitely try it. A word of advice though, if you're gonna choose the pirate route. Snowblind games are notoriously hard to emulate, even to this day. Granted, the rebirth of PS2 created a new era of near-perfect emulation, but still, if you decide to emulate this game, prepare for some tinkering and slight frustration. But if you manage to make it work, you're gonna have the time of your lives, guaranteed. And that's all I had to say about Champions of Norrath. Thank you very much for watching, I hope you enjoyed it. Leave a like if you did, comment your thoughts below and subscribe for more stuff. You know how it goes. You can also support me on Patreon or become a channel member for early access to my videos and other perks. Have a great day, and until next time, take care and have fun.